DW Africalink.
Today marks 32 years since the 1994 Rwandan genocide. On April 7, 1994, what started as an ordinary day quickly became the onset of 100 days of horror, as Rwandans witnessed neighbors turning against one another. Extremist Hutu militias slaughtered Tutsis, resulting in more than 1 million deaths, according to the United Nations. To honor the victims, the UN designated April 7th as the International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. In this podcast, we focus on the stories of hope and resilience that are shaping Rwanda's ongoing healing and recovery. This is Africalink, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter across Africa. I am Adwoa Tenkoramaa Domena, your host for today.
Africalink, every weekday here on DW.
On April 6, 1994, the presidents of Rwanda and Burundi, both Hutu, died in a plane crash, an event that triggered weeks of intense and systematic massacres. The following day, which was April 7th, a radio broadcast blamed Tutsi forces under the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, for this crash, unleashing decades of pent-up anger from the 1959 Hutu uprising to the violence following independence in 1962. By the end of those 100 days in 1994, nearly 1 million people had lost their lives. Today, April 7, 2026, marks another commemoration, a day for collective reflection. Beyond the official ceremonies, how are Rwandans who survived still coping with the trauma? And what sources of hope are driving this nationwide recovery? To help us explore these questions, I'm joined by Mary Balikungeri. She is founder of Rwandan's Women's Network and a Village of Hope for Genocide Survivors, as well as media personality and podcaster Arafat Mugabo, joining us from Kigali. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Arafat, the first question will be for you because you have covered the genocide remembrance for years. How does Rwanda commemorate these anniversaries? And is there any difference you have seen this year compared to previous years?
Actually, thank you so much for asking that question. So today, the only difference that is going to be in this commemoration is that people today will attend the first event where the president goes to Kigali Genocide Memorial and light up the flame of remembrance, and then they will go back, and then after, people will go back to their normal work. But things that they can't engage in is things to do with entertainment. People can also go to gyms, and that never used to be. You can go to the gym, you can do sports if you want to do sports, but what you can't do is that you cannot engage in any competitive or in any competition in sports. What you can do is that if you want to do an individual sport, yes, you can go and do it. But later in the evening, we are going to have, the Walk to Remember, the National Walk to Remember, which will start from the Gasabo district to the BK Arena, for those who know those places. And then that's where the night vigil will take place. But the only difference that really came up is that people now can actually go back to, work after the first event where the president will be the one, lighting up the light of fame.
How was it in previous years?
Usually people would stay at home, follow up the testimonies, follow up the president's event, the one that starts in the morning, and then in the afternoon, they would immediately go to community in their communities to engage with the gatherings that takes place where people share testimonies, people where they get to talk to survivors, in these communities, in their villages. But this time, of course, that is going to happen, but that will happen with other things going on in the country. So like if you have time to attend those events, you will have to go and attend them. But if you feel like you also have something urgent you have to do, but in respect of what is going on in the country, in respect of the commemoration, still you can go on and do it. Remembering will not stop the country to continue doing what they're doing. All people should go back to their work, but of course, reserve some time if you find time to reserve it and go to these events to attend, the testimony, hearing, and other events that will be taking place in the country.
Is this the same reasoning behind why they say you cannot share funny reels, say on social media or in group chats and all of that?
That's very true. You are not allowed to share any social media funny reels. You cannot, actually, for us, like journalists, we were given guidelines by the Rwanda Media Commission that in this period, you cannot air anything that seems like that tries to deny or tries to ignite any hatred or any unrealistic events that happened or happening in the country. So whoever is using social media as well is not allowed to, share funny reels. You cannot share funny reels in this period. You cannot play any secular music that is not music meant for the commemoration. You cannot, go in public and play any music that is not the one related to the genocide against the
Very
Tutsi,
well.
or any music that actually speaks to the survivors.
Thank you so much for that, Arafat. Mary, let me come to you now. You were a survivor. Now you have also set up, a village where you give survivors of the genocide hope. How are you feeling, first of all, today? And how are some of the survivors you deal with on a daily basis, Mary?
I'm one of those, I call ourselves survivors of 1959. So I'm not one of the 1994, because we do believe that 1994 was a culmination. So having survived in 1959 and left Rwanda only at the age of 6, and grew up my life in many countries, first Uganda, and then Kenya, then France, and later on in Switzerland, where I had my children and worked here for the UN. And then later in 1995, I had to come back to Rwanda to be part of the reconstruction journey. So in that history is, I guess, what has given me the energy, the spirit of saying that how do we as Rwandans make sure to never see this again? So it is in that spirit of never again. I say to myself, this must be a deep wound within someone who has survived or whose extended family also have known about that. But how does one person who has gone through go through a process of healing? So when I came back, then I started what we called Polyclinic of Hope. What we meant then when we were calling it Polyclinic of Hope was really see more of an emotional space that allows people to feel safe, that they can easily share what they have gone through and feel unjudged. So in that space, that's when we discovered a lot of things. And that's how then we eventually thought that healing through a process of healing alone is not enough, but how do we also address their primary needs? And so that's how we connected healing and practical responses.
But today, have you had, conversations with these survivors? How are they feeling?
Today, clearly there is, because of the spirit, going through the spirit of healing, gave them hope to know that there can be a better future tomorrow. So today, for me, I see survivors of yesterday, actually, most of them are taking leadership in the communities to help others through also go through recovery. Going through a process of healing, it's an ongoing business, really. It's ongoing. And thank God that we are working from within an environment that offers us the opportunity to really engage meaningfully and freely and be able to address issues that are very critical to our lives. And that's why I'm a great fan of creating safe spaces, of which safe spaces have given birth to the Village of Hope, because we wanted to go broader. And the Village of Hope, of course, gave a much bigger opportunities to many more other Rwandans to really engage through a process of healing, because we believe healing takes quite a dimension of looking to long-term future.
For you and for these survivors, what does healing look like?
Healing for them is that over 30 years, they have been able to move on, and they have been able to even engage themselves to helping others who still feel in isolation to come on board. So I'm seeing the survivors of yesterday are the change makers of today. So the journey is on. It's not everybody's on board, but many more survivors are encouraging their fellow survivors to get out of isolation, to feel that there is a way to move on. And so for us, it's really continuation to create several spaces to allow us to take everybody through that dialogue, that conversation that makes them know that there is a better future if you open up. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Arafat, I just want to find out from you, in your years of coverage, how far would you say Rwanda has come on its journey of healing, recovery, and reconciliation?
Actually, that's really a very hard question to answer. But looking at how people have really, let me give you a simple example. A simple example. I know a friend of mine that I didn't know that his father was among the perpetrators of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. But through the conversation and getting together to know each other, he got to tell me that his father was among them. He was even taken to prison for, I think, 30 years. So he came back and he's now living in the communities. But what shocked me is that this guy married a daughter of one of the families that his father killed, their relatives.
What?
Yes. This is one of the stories you will hear in communities of Rwanda, where you find that the reconciliation has reached to the extent that now families of those who perpetrated now can marry families of those that they killed for. Today, as we speak, that young man is living with a daughter of one of the families that they killed, that his father killed their parents. You see? So when you look at that history alone, it gives you the image of how the country has come from, where it has reached now in terms of reconciliation and rebuilding and unity and coming together. So that is a story that you will tell someone and someone will not accept. We today, as we speak, if my data serves me well, as we speak now, over 7,000 perpetrators of the 1994 genocide have returned back in communities. They've served their sentence back in communities. As we speak today, they are living with these others. Some of them are working with the families of those, or kids, or friends of those that they killed, their relatives. So they're working together. They're living together in the family. So for someone who is not living in Rwanda will hear this and say, no, that's a lie. But that's something that is happening today in this country. So when you look at that, listening to survivors over years teaches you trauma that is not. Now I'm coming to the trauma part. When you listen to survivors, it shows you that, trauma is not a chapter that closes. It lives in the body. But the government has really put in much effort to ensure that regardless of what you feel inside yourself, you have to heal and you have to move on with other people. Maybe that's simply what I can say to answer your question.
Interesting. Mary, does this sound surprising to you that Rwanda has come so far, so much that people are able to intermarry and live, even in the midst of all the hurt, people are still able to forgive and move on? Does it sound surprising to you?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Nothing is really surprising because we've seen great responses, especially from the new generation, where everybody questions themselves to say, why should I be caught up into a situation which was not mine? So in our healing spaces, you find that such conversations are so deep, and the young people are deep diving into these kind of conversations. And then you find that because of such experiences, as Arafat mentioned, there are so many other life experiences we see, so many other young people also who are in leadership, who actually still even have parents in jail, are openly and publicly giving such testimonies. And such testimonies help their peers to know that we can move on. We really don't have to be left, caught up into situations where we are paying the price for not what we didn't do. So for us, that brings a hope. But while I say this, I must recognize that genocide lives on, and it lives on for decades. And when it is not properly treated, it has repercussions in many years to come. So that's why Rwanda has always opted for continuous dialoguing, for continuous creating spaces for some of those who are not yet have come to terms to accept or even to speak openly about what they have gone through, to continue to help them, to support them, to make them feel that even if you don't want to speak, but still don't be caught up.
When you were just talking, it just, clicked in my head. And I'm thinking whether there are still people who are struggling to forgive and move on from 32 years ago.
Of course, people cannot come all at the same time, same level. There are those we see in communities that are very retreating, isolated, and that's why we still continue to multiply our spaces. Because we've seen that the more spaces and the more we approach those we see that are not really living a life of their own, we try to bring them in such a space so that they can begin to continue hearing the testimonies of those who have gone through a process of healing. And slowly and gradually, we are seeing many, many more people coming on board. That's how we are able to hear stories like those stories of young people who comes up openly and say, my father was part of this. I don't want to be part of this. I want to live a life. So when you give such a people opportunities, it's very, very important. So, and I think that's one of the good things that Gachacha really did for us, which opened up doors to really show us critically that once you face each other, we are able to say, yes, life can go on. So genocide lives on for decades. We cannot deny this. And that's why we have to continue conversing. That's why we have to continue going through a process of healing. I don't know if this makes sense to you.
It does, absolutely. And I'm going to ask my last question for the two of you. One will take it first. Mary, I'll begin with you because you have the mic.
Okay.
Do you think that the genocide commemoration will ever move from pain to celebration of how far Rwanda has come, how the country has been able to rebuild itself, despite this steep fall? Because when you talk among Pan-Africanists and people who know the African story, the Rwandan story forever remains a miracle. People think that Rwanda has been able to rise from the ashes and rebuild itself so greatly. Can the nation itself move on from the pain and celebrate its resilience in the midst of all that has happened?
Yeah, for me, I don't know whether when I say God taking people through a process of healing, what we see next is a celebration. Healing and the celebration go together. When you come to our safe spaces and you see how much women are celebrating their achievements, planning their future goals and the rest, for me, that's the celebration I'm looking at. And when you see a country that has moved from the ugliest, really past, for me, even to continue to achieve what we are achieving, it's because we are at peace. Somehow we are at peace because we would not be achieving what we're achieving.
Thank you so much, Mary. Arafat, you have the final words.
My final word to this is that, sincerely speaking, when I look at where the country where it comes from and where it is today, I don't think I'll be wrong to say that we are already celebrating. We are already celebrating, and we can see that happening. As I conclude, I'll give you one scenario that I know. I followed up one man who was released just a few years ago, like 3 years ago, in I think in the western province of Rwanda, and this man in that village, he alone killed over 75 people in just 2 days. And that man, when he was released, he didn't have that feeling of going back to community, to where he lived. He felt like he cannot come because he knew that the people that he had killed, their relatives, were going, I think, to kill him immediately. So he was very scared of that. But this man, he has become history in that area where he went back and people welcomed him. Today, as we speak, just imagine in your single village having someone who killed over 70 people in just 2 days in that area, comes back after his sentence and lives with those people in the community. As we speak now, even if you come and go and visit that place, you will find that man and you will hear the history of that man, and you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked. So looking at that alone, for me, shows that the country is already on the move to celebrate. So what we are doing today, or what the country is doing today, should continue to do it, because as the theme of the remembrance says, that remember, unite, and renew. We are seeing that happening. Remembering is just remembering the victims. Unite is getting together and bring people together for reconciliation, and renew, showing them that look at the history, but look at where we are today. That's what we are looking at now. So who am I not to say that we are already celebrating? We are not yet celebrating the final of it, but we are celebrating in a way. That's maybe what I can say.
Very well. And that's a good way to end the discussion. You just heard Arafat Mugabo. He's a media personality and podcaster in Kigali. Earlier, you heard Mary Balikungeri. She's founder of Rwandan's Women's Network and the Village of Hope for Genocide Survivors. Lady and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Africa is changing. Don't get left behind. Tune in to Africalink.
For many Rwandans, healing remains a long and ongoing journey, one that may take generations to fully overcome the shadows of the past. Yet, Rwanda's progress today stands as a testament to the power of rebuilding, with survivors becoming beacons of resilience and inspiring others. This day is not only about honoring resilience and recovery, but also about urging the international community to remember the victims and continue supporting survivors. Activists like Mary Balikungeri emphasize the need for community-driven support and engagement, ensuring that aid addresses the true needs of those still healing from trauma. What is undeniable is that the impact of genocide lingers for decades. And as we join the world in reflecting on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, we affirm that every survivor's story matters. and that true understanding comes from listening to those who lived through it. Share your thoughts on this discussion with us on our DW Africa Facebook and TikTok pages. Listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. This show was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabe. And I am Adwoa Tenkoramaa Domena. Thanks for listening.
DW. Made for minds.